Hello and welcome back. This is Mr. Hall, and in this video we are going to work on creating a new part in Inventor. This part is going to be a pretty basic part with just one sketch and one extrusion. And you'll see what I mean here in just a minute. To start any new part or any feature in Inventor, the first step is always to start a new sketch. So up in our ribbon, we're going to look in our 3D Model tab, and we're going to click Start 2D Sketch. When we click that, the three planes that we can work in pop up, and we have to select where we want to draw. I usually like to start on the XY plane. If you look, the XY plane matches up with our front view on our view cube. So the XY plane right here, which highlights, matches up with our front view. The YZ plane, which you can see down here, YZ, matches up with our right side view, and the XZ plane matches up with our top view. I'm going to work in the front view. So to start, I will click on my XY plane, and you can see my view cube rotates, so I'm looking at my front view, and I am now in a little bit different looking screen. You can see up here it's switched automatically to the Sketch tab for me, and I have some new tools that I can use to draw something. I'm going to start by drawing a simple rectangular prism. To do this, I will click on my rectangle tool, and with this it's called a 2-point rectangle. So what that means is I have to click in one spot where I want the rectangle to start, and I click in another spot where I want the rectangle to end. It doesn't really matter what size I make it because I can resize it after I create this rectangle. So I'm going to click in the center. I always like to try to start my sketches in the center at the origin. Using math terms here, this is just like graph paper in math. Quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we have our origin. When I get close to my origin, you can see that my cursor will snap right to the middle. It turns green, and I know I'm right in the center. So I'm going to click and not hold, just click, and then move my mouse, and then click again once I have a rectangle drawn. And there is a rectangle. To make this rectangle a 3D rectangular prism, my next step is going to be to finish the sketch. Watch what happens when I finish the sketch. I will not be in this ribbon tab anymore, and over here in my browser where it says Sketch 1, it will turn white and not gray any longer. So I will finish my sketch. So I just drew Sketch 1. Creating a new sketch automatically adds a sketch to my browser. So Sketch 1, if I hover over it over here, is this rectangle. Now, working in that rectangle, I don't know what size. I don't remember what size I made it. Let's say after making the rectangle, you realize I wanted to make that rectangle 2 inches wide and 1 inch tall. To do that, I go back over to my browser here and hover over Sketch 1, where I see that the sketch is now highlighted in red on my screen in my graphics window. So I right-click on Sketch 1, and I click Edit Sketch. I need to fix this. Okay? To edit this sketch, to make it the size that I want it to be 2 inches from here to here. I want here to here to be 2 inches. How do I do that? There's a couple different ways. I click on my dimension tool right here. So I can click from here, the left side, click, do not hold, just click, and then click again on the right side. Once I do that, if I move my mouse, Now you can see that there is an arrow pointing from left to right, and it tells me that that is 0.858 inches long. If I click one more time, it places that dimension, and a text box pops up for me to edit that dimension. I want it to be 2 inches wide, so I'm just going to type 2. We are automatically working in inches right now, so I just click 2 and hit enter. When I do that, my whole rectangle adjusts. I don't see a rectangle anymore. The reason for that is my screen is too small to see the whole thing. So to see the whole rectangle, what you can do is scroll on your mouse, on your scroll wheel, scroll away from you. By scrolling once, my screen is now where I want it to be. So I have it 2 inches wide. Now I need to make it 2 inches tall. I still have my dimension tool on. You can see it's highlighted here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click from the bottom to the top. Again, just click and click. Do not click and hold. And after you click, then when you move your mouse, the height dimension pops up. So I'm going to click one more time and click that into place and type 1. When I type 1, it makes the size that I want. There. My rectangle has been updated. It's the size that I want it to be. Now I'm ready to make it 3D. So to do that, again, we're still in our sketch, so we have to go back out of our sketch by saying finish sketch. We are done with our sketch. So finish the sketch, and it brings us back to an isometric view. You can see our view cube here. If your rectangle is not in the right spot, what you can do is click the home button on your view cube, and when you do that, it kind of brings everything right back to the center, so it's easy to see. Now I would like to make my rectangle three-dimensional. To do that, I need to use the extrude feature. The extrude feature is over here. Notice that we're not in the sketch tab anymore. It automatically brought us to 3D model. So under the 3D model tab, I'm going to click extrude, and extrude brings up this box here. Because there is just one rectangle and one sketch there, it automatically picks it and makes it a rectangular prism. This rectangular prism is 1 inch deep. I don't want it to just be 1 inch deep. I want it to be actually 3 inches deep. So I'm going to go ahead and type 3. When I do that, it automatically updates and you can see the whole thing. You can also scroll now to see what you want. It zooms wherever your cursor is, just as a heads up. So I move my cursor, I scroll, I see what I want. It's 3 inches. It is extruding in this direction. You can see the arrow pointing out. If I wanted to make it extrude back this direction, the other way, I would simply go over to my extrude box here, and instead of direction 1, I would click on direction 2. And when I click that, it goes back the other direction. So there's direction 2, there's direction 1. This works for me, so I'm just going to click OK, and I'm done. Notice, now that I've done that, I no longer have a sketch over here. I have extrusion 1. If I click this little plus button next to it, you'll see that the sketch that I used to create extrusion 1 is underneath extrusion 1. They are connected with this little line right here. So sketch 1 created extrusion 1, and when I hover over sketch 1, I can still see that sketch. If I click on it, it stays highlighted, and you can see over here it's a 2 inch by 1 inch rectangle. So there's my sketch, and there's my extrusion. If I made my extrusion the wrong size, I simply do exactly what I did for sketch 1. I right click on extrusion 1, and I click edit feature. I wanted it to be not 3 inches, but 3.5 inches. So I click enter or OK, and there is my rectangular prism. If I click home, it brings me right back to where I need to be. And to finish this out, I'll show you our navigation bar. If we want to look at this item in different angles, we can click on this orbit tool on our navigation bar. When we click that, it brings up a dialog box here, and you can see our cursor changes to a little bit of a gyroscope type looking thing. And if I click and hold and drag my mouse, I can rotate this part around wherever I want. If you watch as I do this, my view cube follows exactly however I'm doing it. If I mix it up and I don't know where I'm at, and I need to see that regular view again, I can go ahead and click on my home button, and it brings me back where it needs to go. The final thing I'll show you is to move the view from side to side. I can use the pan feature, which is this hand, and if I click that, my cursor now switches to a hand, and if I click and drag, I just drag side to side, up and down, and at an angle in 2 dimensions. To turn these tools off, if you want to use your cursor again, simply hit Escape in the top left corner of your keyboard. This is creating a simple one extrusion part in Inventor.